Hello Sanibonani beautiful people, welcome to another video. If you are new here, my name is Thenjiwe. I'm a South African stand-up comedian, and in this video I am answering your questions about my comedy career. And I had some very interesting questions. Some of them were not worth answering because they had nothing to do with comedy, and some were very similar to each other, so I just selected a few to answer to give you a little bit more insight about my career. What do you love more between TV and stand-up comedy? Between television and stand-up comedy, I love stand-up comedy more, and that is because with stand-up comedy, I feel like it's such a personal journey. I make all the decisions. Whereas with TV, even if I have written the show, someone else has to approve every word, someone else has to edit what we've shot and decide what makes the cut. And also with television, I'm not by myself. There are other people, which is nice to have teamwork, but also someone else is deciding on my hairstyle, my makeup, my dress, my everything. Whereas with comedy, it's just me and the microphone. Even if I think of something there and then, I can just say it. And also the immediate reaction of the audience, the sound of laughter, it's right there. It's you feel it. There's just an exceptionally good feeling of having an audience with you and hearing them laugh at the right places when they are supposed to be laughing. So I would always choose stand-up comedy over television. How do you come up with material? How I come up with material is, it's different because I have material I come up with from observation, where I could be observing something and see something funny. I could be in a restaurant and see someone sitting opposite me eating, and I can make a joke or think of a joke based on how they're holding their cutlery. I can make jokes based on personal experiences. I have jokes based on family experiences. I have jokes based on dreams. I dream about things, and those dreams can easily become into jokes. Sometimes I dream about punchlines. And yeah, so I make jokes about everything. I think jokes are everywhere. Jokes are everywhere. You just have to open your comedy sense and you will find jokes everywhere. I've got jokes like from funerals, weddings. So jokes are everywhere. You can go to a hospital and come back with loads of jokes. How do people respond when you tell them what your job is? I try not to tell people that I am a stand-up comedian. When I meet people for the first time, I usually tell them that I am a nurse or a teacher or a writer. I like to use a writer a lot because I am a writer. I do write my own jokes. Because when you tell people that you are a comedian, they tend to have this attitude of wanting you to tell them a joke. And I do not like that. When you tell people I'm a comedian, like if I was a boxer, would you be asking me to punch you? No, you wouldn't. If I said I was a cleaner, would you give me a broom and ask me to prove that I'm a cleaner by sweeping? So I avoid telling people that or don't already know that I'm a stand-up comedian, that I'm a comedian. If I tell you the first time I met you, you are very lucky. What's the best thing about being a comedian? For me, the best thing about being a comedian is traveling. Comedy has allowed me to see parts of the world that I would otherwise have never seen. I've traveled to different parts of the world. I've been to places like Singapore. Where else have I been in Southeast Asia? Vietnam, the Philippines. I've been to many African countries that I would never have gone to. I've been to parts of Britain that I would never have been to because I didn't even know those places existed. But through comedy, I've been able to visit those places. And what's the worst thing about your job? Well, the worst thing about my job is very similar to the best thing about my job. The worst thing about being a comedian is constantly traveling, constantly being on the road, sometimes having to be on the last train home, driving in the rain, driving for 6 hours only to go and perform for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and driving at night, like it's odd hours when the show finishes at midnight, you still have to drive home. So you're constantly being on the freeway, running for the last train home. Those are the worst things about being a comedian for me. Which country has the best audience? The country with the best audiences for me is South Africa. That's because I'm a South African, and in South Africa, it's especially people who speak isiZulu, which is my home language, Zulu, because there's just a certain level of funny when you're speaking in your mother tongue, and also when people are listening to jokes that they relate to, like when you talk to people, because comedy is subjective. So I feel like I relate more when I talk to people that I grew up with, that understand my background, because they would have had the same experiences. They would have had, I'm not just sharing my experience. They're not just laughing at me, but they're laughing at themselves. I'm reminding them of things that they see every day, but never thought of the same way that I do. So I feel like for me, the best audience is the South African audience, especially KZN. That's where you get laughter. People will laugh and like pick up a chair and bang it kind of laughter. Hit your neighbor kind of laughter. But I also enjoy experiencing and sharing my jokes and my sense of humor with people from around the world. It's just that they don't laugh the same as South Africans do. When we laugh, we are wild. Is there anything you won't joke about? Is there anything I won't joke about? The thing that I would not joke about is anything that I find offensive. And how do I know that something is offensive? If I cannot say it in front of the people that I am talking about, then it is definitely offensive and I shouldn't say it. And if I personally find it offensive, then I shouldn't say it. Even if it's funny, I won't say it. And yeah, I think for me, even if it's talking about you, but it must be able to make you laugh as well. If it's talking about your experience, it must be able to make you laugh as well. When it comes to personal stuff that I would not talk about, is there personal stuff that I would not talk about? I think I talk about almost everything on stage. I talk about, like people who come to my stand-up shows know me more than people who know me from other places, because on stage I talk about everything. Yeah, I talk like I'm sitting with my therapist, and just everything just comes out. Do you crack jokes in real life, or are you serious? I always make people laugh. People laugh when I'm around. Sometimes I don't intend to. I do tend to have a very sharp sense of humor, so I might see jokes even where other people don't. And I just tend to make people laugh, but I don't intentionally think to myself, oh, I want them to laugh, I'm going to make jokes today. I don't, but it just so happens. How can one become a comedian? I think for me to be a comedian, it must be something you are born with. People must find you funny before you take it and make it a profession. I have seen people who have tried to become comedians and they have no sense of humor. Well, sometimes in South Africa they succeed through connections. What I always advise people who want to become comedians, like who want to take up comedy as a career, is number one, do not even attempt to become a stand-up comedian if you have never been to see a comedy show live. And there are different comedy shows. Don't tell me you've seen a show on TV that's been edited. That's different from going to a club and seeing a comedian performing live. Go to see a professional comedian performing live when they have their special. Also go to see new material nights where comedians are just trying out new material. Go and see amateur comedy nights so that you can have an idea of what happens. And also go and try material, like try your funny at open mics. Because I know a lot of people think, I want to be a comedian, put me on the lineup. How it works in comedy is everybody starts with open mics, And then if you are funny, you're not going to last very long in open mic. Someone's going to identify your talent, and that's how you start getting booked. But when people think just because they've decided to be funny, it's not like applying for a job to be an accountant. You need to go and do open mic. So find a comedy club, a comedy night near where you live, and just ask them to give you 5 minutes and take it from there. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to the other side. And thank you so much for watching this video. I will be performing at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I'll be doing my comedy special called The Mandela Effect from the 3rd to the 27th of August. So if you will be in Edinburgh, if you know someone who's coming to Edinburgh or someone who lives in Edinburgh, please do share with them that I will be there with The Mandela Effect. And on the 7th of October, I will be at the Manchester Women in Comedy Festival, 7th of October. So if you're in Manchester, I will see you there. Thank you so much. Bye.